Hi everyone, I'm Amy Rose White, integrative psychotherapist. Thanks for being with me today and welcome to my channel. Let's talk about the number one cause of divorce. Now, this might not be a statistic cited in the literature, but it has been my experience and my opinion that the number one cause of divorce is actually shame. Now, the reason that I say that is that shame makes us feel like a bad person deep inside that originates usually from some wounding in childhood, and then we carry that unconsciously into our relationships and do all sorts of wonky things that essentially sabotage them and lead us into this downward spiral where neither party is getting their needs met and no one is happy, and ultimately the marriage dissolves. So one of the key reasons why shame is so dangerous for a marriage or long-term partnership is that we defend against that shame. And most of us carry it. So that sense that we're bad, that there's something fundamentally flawed with us, that we're unlovable, we don't like to feel that consciously. So our unconscious kicks in and we start to engage in all sorts of these behaviors that, again, are really counterproductive to a healthy long-term relationship. So the very best thing that you can do to avoid divorce, to maintain a healthy relationship, to develop a wonderful relationship, is to counteract shame and to work on your own self-love, self-acceptance, and self-worth. Now, that is no easy task, as we know. But what self-worth isn't seeing yourself as perfect. It's not seeing yourself as, in some great light at all times. What it means is that instead of the shame voice of I'm all bad, as soon as my partner looks at me the wrong way or criticizes me or is upset with me, and then I have to do things to defend myself against that by defending or shutting down or avoiding them. Because we're not just talking about high conflict here, we're also talking just about avoiding the things that might elicit shame. Rather than engaging in those, the antidote to shame is to learn to have an integrated sense of self, where we are a good person with flaws. We're a good person who makes mistakes and hurts other people they love sometimes. We make mistakes and goof up and fall on our faces, and we're still worthy and lovable. So that's an integrated view of self. And a lot of us with deep shame wounds simply don't have that. We don't think that those two things can exist together. We believe they're mutually exclusive. And the origins of shame are generally the shame, sadly, that one or both of our parents or caregivers that raised us primarily have for themselves, and then they projected it onto us. And now in adulthood, we go ahead and do that to the people we care about. So that's why it's so important to recognize the spiral of shame and the impact that it has really on generations if we don't get a handle on it and recognize it. And what is needed to heal it is simply to face the shame rather than run away from it, hide from it, medicate it with drugs, sex, shopping, lots of partners, whatever that is that gets us numbing out of the sense of inadequacy, worthlessness, and fundamental badness that is shame. So the reason why shame itself is going to naturally destroy a relationship if we don't develop that self-awareness is that it prevents the two critical components for long-lasting partnership: healthy communication and dialogue and conflict resolution, and it prevents vulnerability. So it inhibits both of the things that really keep us hanging in there for the long term. When the sparks have faded a little bit and the newness is gone and there's maybe jobs and kids and mortgages and all these sorts of things that make your partner not seem as, bright and shiny anymore. It's that deeper intimacy and trust and ability to work through conflict and grow together that shame prevents that is so, terrible and dangerous for the relationship. Because when we're in our shame, we engage in what the Gottmans call the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse. I've done a couple of videos on this. I'll put a link in the description above. But those 4 horsemen, when you don't want to feel your sense of shame, you will criticize, get defensive, have contempt, which is sort of like secretly hating your partner, or stonewall them. which is like checking out, disassociating, going somewhere else, and basically just keeping them at a distance. Those are the 4 greatest predictors of divorce, but they really, to me, their origins are shame. Now, just a really quick summary of how to begin to heal shame is, one, to recognize that its origins did not come from you. They came from someone in your environment. And one practice that I've learned through friends and clients and colleagues in recovery is called give back. And it's a practice of literally finding where that sense of shame resides in your body, shaking it loose somatically. My own therapist taught me to do this and actually give it back like this. So I teach that to clients sometimes. It's really physically giving and imagining, giving that shame, not necessarily back to the person, but seeing it as coming from them and then giving it either to the earth or to the sun or to a higher power, if you believe in that. But getting it out of your physical body and returning it to the source and having it kind of imagine that it is disintegrated into the light or the earth or something that resonates for you, so that it doesn't just stay in your body. And you'll notice as soon as you engage in a conflict, or you're maybe avoiding your family, you're working all the time, or you start, texting that old flame on Facebook or Instagram or whatever, like anytime you're distancing yourself from the relationship, there's often some shame at play. And by giving it back, then we can start to get clear on what the origins are and what is needed now to move forward. So the second really big component of moving through shame so that you can be healthy in your relationship is to really have deep compassion and grow your sense of compassion and loving kindness for the parts that are angry and defensive and withdrawn and shut down and critical, because those are places that you're doing that to yourself as well, 100% of the time. We don't do anything maladaptive out here that we're not doing in here, typically. And so that sense of compassion is literally recognizing that when your partner is upset with you or you've done something wrong, it doesn't mean that we are bad. And that's where self-forgiveness practices such as affirmations to reframe negative shame talk narratives that we all carry in our heads are really important. So some of those new affirmations might be, I love myself no matter what. Again, if they're upset with me, it doesn't mean I'm unlovable. No one is perfect. I'm okay in my body right now. I'm safe. I can handle this, and it doesn't mean I'm a bad person. And then the last really final component around shame recovery is coming back into the body, returning your senses into your own awareness rather than checking out into your head, disassociating, or like I said, getting distracted on your phone, all the things that we do to check out of our own shameful feelings. So that might be as simple as noticing when you're engaging in a behavior that's not super helpful and simply taking 5 long, slow, deep breaths and just noticing what's happening in your environment. Notice a few colors. Notice if you hear a couple sounds. See if you taste anything in your mouth. Feel a few textures. Sequins are very textury. Bring yourself back simply to the present moment. And then if it feels safe to do so, just notice if there's any physical sensations happening in your body. Most of us carrying a lot of shame are very disconnected from that. Now, the gift of this, and my final point before I end here around how you can save your marriage from the effects of your own shame, is that when you do these steps, you give back the shame, you begin to have compassion for yourself, you acknowledge you're just coping the best you can, you work on forgiving yourself, you use loving self-affirmations, and then you return to the body. When you do all these things, you can start to recognize what's happening in you and communicate that to your partner. You can let them know when you feel stuck, when you feel frozen, when you feel triggered or overcome with the emotion. And you can get support from them rather than barreling through in either direction of withdrawal or attack or criticism. You can ask them to actually be there and help you with that process, and hopefully vice versa if they encounter similar experiences, which is not uncommon. So I hope that that's helpful for you. Thank you so much for subscribing, liking, and sharing. I so appreciate your support of this channel. And until next time, may you be happy, may you be well, may you be at peace. Bye for now.